the wrinkle monster. What's the wrinkle monster? It's that giant monster that jumps on your project after you've been working on it for about 3 or 4 hours and it ruins it. Usually happens right around the clear coat stage, and what has happened is you've just witnessed a bad chemical reaction. Now, this chemical reaction can usually be avoided, and it's usually only a couple of common things that cause it. And I'm going to show you what those common things are and keep that wrinkle monster off your project. 3 most common things that cause problems in your small projects. Number 1, coating times. Number 2, acrylic versus enamel. And number 3, using different brands of paint. Let's go through each one and let me show you how to avoid the common pitfalls. Coating times. Sounds simple, not quite as simple as you would think it is. What that means is the time between you put one layer of paint down and then the next one. Sounds easy, but it's really not. Paint does 2 things. It dries and it cures. When it's dry, you can touch it and it feels dry, but it's still releasing chemicals. You have to be careful when it comes to coating times because some paints don't work well with even themselves sometimes if they're still curing one layer underneath another. So, look for the coating times directions on the can of paint. It's actually really simple. It's usually just under the main directions, and you'll see something that says dry and recoat times. Coating times, something to do with time. What that means is when you can actually put one layer of paint down on top of another layer. That will usually save you the heartache of the most common problem with coating times. Acrylic versus enamel. Alright, I'm no chemist, and I know most of you out there aren't either, so I'm just going to tell you the basics. Use acrylic with acrylic or enamel with enamel. Some people can tell you that you can use acrylic with enamel as long as you do it in the right order. Well, I've tried it both ways. It always seems to cause a problem. So just for the sake of keeping things simple, just remember, use enamel paint and enamel clear coat together and use acrylic lacquer paint, acrylic paint with acrylic lacquer top coat, and you usually won't have any chemical reaction problems as long as you're still paying attention to the first problem, coating times. Good rule of thumb for that last one is use the same brand of paint. Now, what do I mean by that? Because of course a lot of times we mix brands of paint. That's okay. As a hobbyist we do it all the time. You just have to be careful. The main colors and the main paints that really seep those chemicals are usually when you lay down a bunch for your base color and then for the clear coat on top. So what's in the middle? That's the paint you got to be careful of. The big thing is make sure you use the same brand for the base color and the top coat. The color in the middle, yes, sometimes we use different brands. Just be careful with the acrylic enamel problem, and generally you won't have any problems. So that's what it means by using the same brands. Last but not least, always read the directions. If you have a problem and you've skipped this step of actually reading the directions, that's probably your number 1 problem. So read the directions with the paints you're using and always take your time. If you have any questions, remember, just use a small scrap of something that you're working on off to the side to make sure you're not having any funky chemical reactions. Well, that's about it for this one. If you have any questions, you know where to check us out. airbrushtricks.com. I'm Tony D. Use acrylic lacquer on top of that, then it'll also most likely not have any problems. Where does it get weird? It gets weird when you use an enamel base coat, maybe some acrylic colors. Now what do you put on top? Because you've got both. Usually you can get away with putting enamel on top of acrylic. Damn, that's wrong. No, that's right. You could put acrylic. Whatever. I don't know. Don't.